this is Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
His fraudulency has been in office for about a little over 6 months now. Welcome, everyone. We are joined by a newcomer, Dr. Giovanni Patterson. Welcome from Charm City.
Right now.
Welcome. And then we've got our usual cast, Dean of Media and Politics in Washington, Don Irvine. Welcome. And we got security expert extraordinaire and quickly becoming the photographer of record for Maryland Republicans, Jeffrey Thornton. Welcome. And we have, never the least, Gary Collins, also from Charm City. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Glad you. This has been a busy week, everyone. We've had everything this week happen from. Let's see. We've had the president do a town hall at CNN, and he kind of flubbed that, if you ask me, the CNN. And then we have some of our old favorites thinking they're running for governor. Michael Steele announced he's putting together an exploratory committee. I wonder, is he going to run for the Democrat nomination? He's going to be the 10th Democrat to get into the primary for governor. I can't see him running as a Republican, and then we have a whole bunch of other stuff, more Cuba still unfolding, and last but not least, our favorite thing, his fraudulency has been talking about remasking people again. Don, take it away.
All right. So I know. So Dwight, you said you want to spend some time on Michael Steele. So we'll go ahead and start it off there. Let you blow some steam about our former lieutenant governor.
Yeah, our lieutenant governor, failed RNC chair. He's been in a failed candidate for U.S. Senate. And after he lost, he blamed Don Rumsfeld. He blamed President Bush, Vice President Cheney, Karl Rove, everybody but the guy in the mirror. Michael Steele is a Lincoln Project board member. Michael Steele campaigned against Cory Gardner and Susan Collins. Michael Steele now wants to run for governor as a Republican in this state. And Michael Steele is, one, I don't think he's qualified to be governor. Two, I think he should be better off running. He's probably going to run he should be running as a Democrat because he's no longer a Republican. He voted for Joe Biden. As I've said eloquently at the convention, there is basically, if you're a Republican, you're going to be only a Republican to be good for Republican values. I don't think, just like I don't believe Republican leaders should be giving money to Democrats. I don't think people that want to be a Republican, get the Republican nomination for governor should be going around hanging out with Democrats and trashing our president, whether you like him or not. In a message to Michael said, not many people like you as lieutenant governor, and people kept their mouths shut because we have something called loyalties, and we don't want to trash our own. But people knew you were kind of incompetent and a buffoon as lieutenant governor. But hey, it's Michael Steele.
You really don't like that guy, huh?
No, I do not. My biggest issue with Michael Steele is the fact that he has no sense of loyalties, whether it be to the governor or anything. And let me tell you, Larry Hogan did not support the president as well. But Larry Hogan did not campaign against Susan Collins. He did not campaign against Cory Gardner. He did a commercial supporting Cory Gardner and Susan Collins. Larry Hogan has a little bit of sense of honor and nobility that Michael Steele just doesn't have. But that's my rant on Michael Steele. Gary, I know you work very closely with him.
Yeah, the very idea Steele would run fight, is just kind of crazy because, maybe the Republican field hasn't it's still early and everything like that. And, a lot of us, I think, are hoping that Kelly Schultz, really does, emerge as the nominee in the end. But, where does Steele think that he can get really any support? Yeah, if he looks at Hogan and how Hogan and President Trump really didn't get along. Yeah, I look at Hogan as someone who's just he was a smart politician. He was very pragmatic in the way he's been doing things as the governor of Maryland. When you're outnumbered so vastly in the state legislature, and it worked to his advantage. But Steele's a very different kind of animal, and I think the involvement with the Lincoln Project, is really there. I mean, it's one thing to disagree with President Trump, but it's another thing to get involved with the Lincoln Project and all the severe anti-Trump and all the other things, anti-Republican things that they did over the last few years. So, I don't know, does anybody, I don't think anyone in the conservative circles that we know cares about Michael Steele would support him. I just don't see where he's really going to get much of support to actually make this run viable.
I don't see where
he's going to get out of the primary, right? He has to get out of the primary. So do you think Maryland's that non-conservative that he would get that far?
Well, his path is this. We've got 5 Republicans running for governor, and he sees Robin getting the tax people, Dan Cox getting the MAGA folks.
Wait, Robin's not
Kelly
getting the tax
Hogan
people.
He's going to give you 2 cents back, Gary. Those people, they're going to get, people who want 2 cents back, they're going to vote for Robin. And Robin does have a constituency.
Okay.
There's, it's kind of like Ross Pierpont when he'd run for governor. He had a core constituency, people that always voted for Ross. It's kind of like, but Michael Steele's path is pulling off enough votes from everyone that he gets to that magic. Because when you have 5 candidates, I think 37% wins the primary for you. You don't need to get to 51%. And that's what he's banking on. That 5 candidates, nobody's going to get over. And if he can get to 35, he's our nominee, that's why I think it's really important that we all get behind our respective candidates, the Republicans early, and kind of just shun Michael Steele so he just doesn't run.
I mean, here's a few things. I mean, Dwight, you were alluding to. I was Michael Steele's student for Steele coordinator. I remember when he ran for United States Senate, which was a great race and a really bad year, frankly, for Republicans. I know folks have their opinions of the former lieutenant governor, but it was a great race. He raised a lot of money. He did, as good as he could with all the anti-Bush rhetoric that was running. Now, here's the thing that I will say is a couple things. One, basically, I think that a primary is always a good thing. It should be a healthy primary because here's the thing. If I remember correctly, just about 7 short years ago, we all thought that David Craig was maybe going to become governor or some other person.
Actually, I always thought it was going to be Larry Hogan. I was always.
I never did. I never thought that Larry would have ever came through, and he did, and he pulled it. And in fact, he pulled not just an upset in the primary, in my opinion, with some really big name Republican leaders in the state at that time, but he actually did an upset not once but twice for governor in the gubernatorials. I think that's an incredible thing.
When he won re-election, everybody was saying, he'll be one and done like every other Republican, and he won re-election,
And he did. So here's the thing that I will say about Michael Steele. I think that, we as conservatives, moderate to right-leaning to full-blown conservatives, we have to take a look and be realistic about a few things. And one is you cannot run as a Trump Republican in the state of Maryland and expect to win. I am absolutely 100% a supporter of President Donald Trump. I hope he runs again. I ran around the country to try to make America great again back in the day. But at the end of the day, the reality is here in Maryland, I think Donald Trump polls roughly about 17%. So Governor Hogan was smart enough to look at the polls, and he saw the writing on the wall. And I think that, I will just present this. I think that maybe our former lieutenant governor has kind of been a bit strategic with the Lincoln Project. While I certainly don't agree with destroying Republicans, especially as a former RNC chairman. It's a little bizarre to me. On the same token, I think that from a strategy standpoint, if you're really wanting to win in a Democrat state like Maryland, you kind of have to be Democrat light to even slightly liberal if you want to do that. And that's been the gripe that we've had on the same token with Governor Hogan.
But that's after the primary, though, man. You got to get through a primary.
I understand, but who's going to, at the end of the day, who is going to be able to win the government house? Who's going to be able to step foot inside of that? And I mean, look, I think that Kelly Schultz has a great opportunity. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, she has demonstrated time and again in the Hogan administration her ability to lead. She's a time-tested legislator. You know, she's definitely doesn't have all the baggage for sure.
And
to be
here's the
fair.
thing. And here's the thing, Gary. I think Kelly wins it by 3 to 4%.
Right.
Because the Democrats are going to go with Tom Perez, who's way too liberal. I mean, the Montgomery County Democrats think Ben Jealous lost because he didn't go far enough. You know, so they're gonna. So Tom Perez is their stalking horse, the one who wants to break up corporations and give all the power to the big labor unions. And there's you know, so that's going to, you know, that's gonna and I think Kelly makes a lot more sense. She had a great fundraiser this past Monday. I think they raised well over $5,000 at the fundraiser they had in Kensington this past Monday. And Kelly is raising money, and she's going to have a ton of money going into the primary, going into the general. While the Democrats, I think, what do they have? Are they up to 9 candidates now, or 8 candidates? I mean, they've got 9 to 8 candidates running, and they'll probably get a few more. And Peter Franchot just does not get out of the primary. I don't see Peter Franchot or Gansford getting the nomination on the Democrat
What about
side.
Brooke Learman? Oh, no, Brooke Learman, she's running for comptroller, sorry.
She's running for comptroller. And Brooke, you know, I kind of wish she would run for governor, because we could talk about how she's going to deputize all the trees in Baltimore City and how there's nothing wrong with the schools in Baltimore City. Because, she made a comment about how trees.
I made a whole video about that. You guys got to watch it on my channel.
Yeah, you got to send it to me, and I'll play it next week on Dr. Politics. Or if you want to send it to me now, I can put it up.
Hey, she's my delegate, so I have to stay neutral.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here, let me share with you what she thinks about Baltimore City Public Schools.
Madam Speaker, I rise as the mother of a Baltimore City public school student to tell my colleagues that the Baltimore City public school system is not failing. It is every day teachers show up in our Baltimore City public schools, and they do absolutely everything that they could to help our children.
Hey, well, I guess numbers aren't real.
She probably there's I think 2 good schools in Baltimore City, and that's probably where the 2 that she's looking at. Oh, those are the only 2 schools in Baltimore City.
Well, our average composite SAT score is about 800.
Wow, 800. Is that for just the math or the verbal, or is that math and verbal combined?
No, that's just a composite, so that's the combined score.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with Baltimore City Public Schools, Brooke Learman.
So, I mean, there's definitely areas we can improve. Like, I think that's one part about Democrat politicians, is that they're not honest about the problems. And the problems are just based on how they feel. And she feels like the schools are going well, so, you know, they're going well.
How many charter schools are there in Baltimore City?
I'm not sure the exact number, but there are a few.
Oh, good.
But there needs to be more, and there needs to be more private schools. But school choice.
Going back to what
on the top of everybody's
Gary was saying, in terms of Steele and his viability and everything like this. I mean, I think that someone's, like Schultz. I mean, if Kelly comes across as a little, shows some Hogan-esque type of things, then I think that that helps her a lot. I don't see, like, for the Democrats where they're going to be helped much on the national level either. I mean, Maryland, there are a lot of liberals in Maryland, but I don't know that when you watch the national Democrats, looking at Biden or Pelosi, Schumer, AOC, Sanders, all these people, I don't think that they're going to do the Maryland Democrats any favor, especially if they run a Tom Perez if he becomes a nominee, because they're like, okay, you take Tom Perez and then you look up against what they have already on it. Well, we already know what a disaster the Democrats are, what they're doing to the country as it is right now. The last 6 months, Maryland doesn't need it. It's been pretty darn good in Maryland with the way it has been. I mean, obviously, we'd all like to see more Republicans elected in the state house, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So you've got to be a somewhat pragmatic person. Yeah, you can't. A Trump Republican, there's no way that a hard conservative wins in Maryland statewide like that. But someone who can be a little bit more moderate, Hogan has done exactly, what he needs to do. That's what's kept him in office. He has been very pragmatic. He's used executive orders in order to get a few things through and make some changes there that didn't need, where he didn't need the state legislature to, come down on him. And that's what you have to do. I don't know. I mean, I kind of still, even though Kelly was, she is a politician, at least her background, she came into the DLLR and then to the commerce position. I don't know. I think Steele just has this baggage that's just going to be, too damaging that even in a primary, it's going to be tough. I mean, yeah, Robin Ficker has the people who care about 2 cents and remember they want to collect their pennies around the state or whatever. But we all, and we know Robin is a perennial candidate. He, that's it. If he loses this time, he'll just be next time for something else. He's just never going to stop, and that's fine. Dan Cox, I don't know why he's really running, but whatever. You can go ahead and run. This is a free country. Go ahead and do it. But I'm hoping that Republicans do coalesce around someone. Right? My casual observation of Kelly right now is that she's doing the right thing. She's getting out there early. She's going all around. I saw a picture of her posted in Cumberland at some ice cream and things like that. One of the things that impressed me about Hogan, early on, and Dwight, we tried to do something in my office when Hogan first ran, and I had a chance to sit down with Hogan and interview him, and we used that, and they used that on their campaign site, until things ramped up. Was just that he was very personable, and I was really impressed, in how he really tried to learn people's names so that even if you showed up at another event, he knew you by your first name. Particularly if you were on the state central committee, Republican, he knew most of the people there by their first name. That to me goes a heck of a long way. That beats the heck out of a lot of politicians who was like, give me your $100 and I might thank you, and I'll never remember your name again because unless you're going to give me $50,000, that gets my attention. But $100. But Hogan, he'd get down to the smallest guys a lot of times, and I think that was a huge plus for him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, I do want to say I think there is an opportunity for, a strong conservative. But it's really all about messaging and how you put that forth. Because I'm just saying, from personal experience, and Gary can attest to this, running particularly in Baltimore, which is deep blue. And we were able to increase, Republican numbers in this last election cycle. Now for whatever reason that may be, I am, family first type of guy, pro 2A, pro, 1A, anti-abortion, like all of those things. But I think when it comes to, winning, it's just about messaging. And right now, I think people are so, kind of fed up, particularly in Baltimore City. My politics, my views are kind of limited to the city right now. But, from a conservative perspective, I think there's a strong and really a prime opportunity right now for a strong conservative, and not someone that's really just middle of the road, but really can deliver a message from a conservative perspective.
And I think the conservative message works every time. We just have to package it right. We can't lead with I was Randall Terry's campaign manager back in the late '90s when he ran for Congress, and I kept telling Randall, don't run with the kill abortion doctors because they're murderers nonsense. I mean, Randall would get baited into an argument on abortion, opposed to Randall talking about his tax policies, which makes more sense. But no, and we've got to have. I mean, I know and we believe in choice. If somebody doesn't want to be vaccinated, that's fine. It's your choice, But I don't think it's wise for the Republican Party to be the party of anti-vaccinations. It's an individual choice. It's a choice you got to make yourself. I got the vaccine because I got the vaccine. Because I trust President Trump and his people, because this is the Trump vaccine. It's not the Biden vaccine, as the media would like to build it as.
Yeah, I think that's one of those ancillary issues that are being put to the forefront for really no good reason.
Yeah.
We have to talk. We have to, especially if a conservative is going to win. A conservative has to stand on really their own platform and not necessarily just combat what the other side or the Democrats or whatever are talking about. I think it's time and there's an opportunity really just to kind of drive the direction that Republicans or conservatives want to go in instead of responding to what everyone else is doing. And I think the opportunity now is really about returning power back to the people when it comes to taxes, putting more money back into the pockets, especially after COVID. When it comes to economic opportunities, we need more businesses. If anything that's rejecting business right now, then we shouldn't be for it. We should be talking about education. Everybody has stake in this education system, right? And are you getting the return on your investment? So these are areas that I think a strong conservative should lead in, right? Because that's creating their own narrative instead of just following the trends of what everybody else is talking about.
Yep. And then you have, we saw the DOL secretary talk about a skills gap, and then you had Joe Biden the other night going, pay them more. Again, it's like, I'm sorry, what are we going to pay these folks? Jeff, let me bring you in. Do you think McDonald's workers should be getting $20, $25 an hour, making the same as I don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think we've talked about this before. I'm all for living wages, and the whole livable wage discussion is a whole other topic because there are areas where the cost of living is higher than others. So having a federal minimum wage is different than having locality minimum wages. But that being said, the taxes and was mentioned before, small businesses. I mean, that's where I see the big problem is that Biden has said that one of the things he was going to do differently was going to protect small businesses during this pandemic. And now we're going to probably talk about it, but the remasking of American, that's going to cripple or if not destroy a lot of small businesses. So how are we going to address potential second wave of this?
I mean, I can count about, I can count about a half a dozen businesses that went under during the pandemic under the heel of Mark Elrick and the Montgomery County Democrat-controlled council.
Yeah.
We had Bagel City went under. We had the other bagel shop in Cabin John go under. We've had several Rockville Slice, really good pizza place. They went under, and it's I mean, I'm sure you guys in Baltimore City have seen a lot of your favorite restaurants go away.
For sure.
Don, you and I, we know that other guys I was telling you when I was in Florida, the Wendy's was drive-through only at 6 p.m. And this Wendy's was located right on the beach. You think they'd be open and because people would be going in because people at the beach stick around at the beach till like all these crazy hours, and they'd want to come in after that and get some food, but they're closed because you can't go in there. And
I think that we have to also look at maybe the bigger picture too when it comes to some of the masking mandates and some of the other interesting ideas that are out there. The reality is obviously the Democrats are sitting back, and there's clearly an agenda, I think, to go ahead and to really push a mandatory minimum income each and every month. I mean, Mitt Romney, you talk about rhino, full-blown rhino. Mitt Romney was successful at pushing this, what is it, $250? I don't see it, but $250 or whatever each month, your government check that everybody gets. So I think that, if there's any positive thing, if more businesses shut down and the economy continues to spiral, guess what? At least we can get another stimmy, right?
well, here's the thing. I am sick of these damn stimuluses, frankly. Why don't you give me a stimulus by giving me a tax cut like President Bush did? Across the board tax cut. That would do more to stimulate the economy than any of these $2,000, $3,000, I don't know, $300 checks that they're getting. And have you?
Well, the question is messaging around the tax cut, because as soon as you say tax cut, what do Democrats think? Tax
cuts for the rich, but exactly.
Well, I'm not rich. I need a tax cut.
I'm comfortable, and I need a tax cut. It's like, why is it that, like, if people I think people who send their children to private schools should get a tax deduction for that, because they're not using state county resources by sending their kids to a failing public school. I think, and the tax message, when you say it's, because if you look at the Bush tax cut, which I think was one of the things that helped him get easily reelected in 2004, it was anybody who paid taxes. You got, I think it was $400 down, or was it $300 back? I think it was $400 back from the White House. And it was very well received. I know Democrats said, well, it's not enough money, but I mean, for a Democrat, the president could have given $4,000 back to everyone in taxes, and that still would not have been enough for Democrats. I think the message for tax cuts is, don't you think you're paying? Everybody agrees they're paying way too much in taxes, and that's, I think, the messaging we should be using is.
Well, you got to keep it a little bit more simple. Say, average American, you're getting an extra $200 a month that the government was taking from you. Let's increase your wages already.
Yep.
$200 a month.
Yep. And I think that's like, if you remember when President Trump did his first tax cut, we saw it immediately in our payroll because the payroll taxes were cut. We all saw a bump in our salaries 2 weeks after that was signed into law. And unfortunately, he couldn't get it permanent because of all the Democrats, in Congress wouldn't, heaven forbid if we should give out permanent tax cuts to people, let people spend their own money, and I think the message is, I mean, Giovanni, who knows how to spend your money better, you or some bureaucrat in, whether it be Baltimore City Hall, Annapolis, or Washington? Who knows how to spend your money better?
I know how to spend it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean,
I got a wife. I got a wife and kids. I know how to spend it.
Part of the problem that COVID has given us too is just that because the government, whether or not it's under Trump or under Biden, it's just that they've gone off, and we have had a series of stimulus checks. We've got child tax credit things going on. We've got the moratorium on rent. We have the extra unemployment money coming in. All this kind of stuff is that a lot of people, these types of things ought to be permanent in a lot of ways. And Hogan got rebuffed, by a judge on trying to exit the unemployment benefit, the extra payment early, and so the government are coming in there and trying to dictate what's going on there. But it's not solving any. That doesn't solve any problems. I mean, this only helps further the welfare state. The economy right now is doing fine. I mean, the economy is roared back after the pandemic. We have, they reported the recession lasted all of 2 months officially by government records. Biden thinks that this infrastructure bill that they've been tossing around is a good thing, is going to help tame inflation, but government spending is one of the things that you keep those spigots rolling long enough. That is inflationary. That is pressure that will inflate everything. Is the inflation transitory? Maybe, but if you're going to add another 1.2 to 3.5 trillion dollars to the national debt, that is not anti-inflationary. That is not going to bring those inflation numbers back down into that 2 or 2.5% range or whatever. The spikes we've seen year to year, which are big, but over a 2-year period, they're not so bad. If these continue to continue for the next few months, then I think we've got a worrisome trend here. And
yeah, I mean, we're
Biden's
seeing
got problems. Everywhere you look, Biden, I mean, the administration is facing a lot of challenges. They don't really know what to do with all these challenges.
Joe Biden is the second coming of Jimmy Carter. I mean, we're about to get to. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was at the supermarket the other day. I know food prices are not included in the inflation numbers, but that's what I think putting food on the table impacts Americans right away. I was over at the supermarket. Jalapeno peppers I used to buy for $1.99 on the high end were $2.49. I mean, that is crazy. I mean, I still bought them. I mean, for folks like us, that are reasonably comfortable, paying a little bit more doesn't make that much of a dent to us. But you talk about the family living in the inner city, spending another 59 cents, 69 cents for a loaf of bread or another buck for a gallon of milk. That makes a big difference,
It's catastrophic.
It's basically a tax. Yeah. And hiking food prices is basically a tax on the poor at the end of the day. It affects the people that can least afford to pay a little bit more for food. And I know the government talks about all these hunger numbers and all that. Well, hey, how about you, if you basically eliminate some of that payroll tax and put more money, or stop this lower inflation. It's insane.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, it's always going to be a tricky thing at this point. I mean, but at the administration, I mean, we've been waiting 6 months for them. We've known that one of the issues here is the supply chain problem. We've got things bottlenecked at ports where we still have a severe semiconductor chip shortage, issues, all these types of things.
Yeah.
But where's the magic fix that that the Democrats
and they're saying this is going to be 2 years before things get back. Yeah, I've been wanting to buy an i9 processor laptop for the last 6 months, and I've yet to. I might actually break down and just buy another i7 processor. But it's ridiculous that we have to wait for so long to get. Cars. We've got a shortage of new cars. I would love to trade in my car because they're really good high values on trade-ins. I asked the dealership. I go, hey, can you find me a Yukon AT4 black? And they go, oh, we're looking. No, we don't have one. We've got, they got something I don't want, but they go, we got a Acadia AT4, but I go, I don't want the Acadia. I want the Yukon AT4. And it comes down to, it's like, folks, I know people say that's a first world problem, when Dwight can't buy another Yukon, but
definitely,
but at the end of the day, here's this. What about the family that desperately needs a car, who can't afford a used car? They can't buy a new car because they're just not available.
Dwight, it's crazy what's happened to car prices, though. The dealers, they can't get enough supply because of there's the huge chip shortage. So they're not negotiating on the price like they used to. They used to be able to give you some deal. In a lot of cases, they want extra. They want more than the sticker price because of the shortage cars. The used car prices, as a result, they're almost equivalent to a new car. My son was saying, he's about to get married, and they're thinking about, they were looking for his wife, his soon-to-be wife here. Fiance wants to replace their car, and he wants to get a 4Runner, and they've just done a little bit of checking right now. A 4Runner, if you can get it, is about $45,000. done with 20,000 miles is 1,000. And he's kind of like, well, I'm only going to save $3,000 and get a car that's got 20,000 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want that?
Yeah.
Well, would you guys say, this Biden economics, what's going on right now, would you say is creating a less competitive market? Because based on that information, I mean, what you're saying is dealers are able to set their prices, and whatever it is, they're essentially be able to price gouge anyone out of essentially anything. And what we saw under Trump, it's like the market was more competitive, so people were able to afford basic necessities, materials, everything like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Giovanni, in 2019, I bought a brand new Yukon from Coons GMC in Clarksville. Great dealership. I love them. They're awesome. Right. I got roughly, it was about $65,000 Yukon. I got it for about 52. And that's why, because there was competition. I could go to King Pontiac and get it, so I could go to King Pontiac and find the same car and wheel and deal with them. Today, I can't go to King to find that car because they don't have that car, and no one else seems to have those cars. So, and this is a result of Bidenomics, this is just the beginning. I mean, we can't find. I mean, I've been trying to upgrade laptops for employees, and I'd like to go to a better laptop. Going with going either with a i9 or a later i7 processor. But they're hard to find because of the chip shortage. Thank you, Joe Biden. It's Biden, and now a laptop that should have cost under $2,000 is now roughly about $22,000 to $24,000. I mean, I've seen $5,000 laptops at the end of the day.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need to be fair and honest about all of this. I mean, not all the blame, I think, as much as I hate to say it, it should go to Joe Biden yet. Okay, these are a lot of these problems were still were COVID related. If President Trump was in office, there would still be some of these problems. One of my problem really is that I'm not seeing anything out of the White House, out of this administration, as to a solution, that they are working on a solution to the problem. They just don't seem to know what is going on and how to deal with this. They thought everything was just going to magically be taken care of because it's Democrats, it's liberal policies. They would figure this out and whatever. But it's not. They're dealing with real world issues and they don't know what they're doing. I do think that if President Trump was in office, he would at least have people, because he's a businessman, he would try to get to the root of the problem and try to sort this out and try to relieve the bottlenecks in the ports, try to find a way to get the chip shortage resolved in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, I think that would happen. But Biden inherited a situation. They just haven't made it any better. They probably made it a little bit worse. And there's just nothing on the horizon that gives me any confidence that it's going to get any better. And that's a problem. I mean, that's a problem for the Democrats. It's one that we don't mind seeing on a political basis, because we're barreling right into 2022 midterms. This kind of stuff is not going to go well. Republicans will be able to use to their advantage, because I think, as John was talking earlier about messaging, pocketbook issues, taxes and all these kinds of things. How are you doing today? That plays a big part. People vote like that when they come down to it in a normal election year. And right now, these are all very negative indicators for the Democrats right now.
And Don, the commercial rights itself, a pound of beef during the Trump administration cost this much. This is what it costs today. This is what a gallon of milk under President Trump costs. This is what the gallon of milk costs today. This is what a loaf of bread costs. This is what a loaf of bread costs today. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And the answer is going to be no, you're not. Or are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? And the answer is no, you're not.
What they're going to say is that, well, we gave you more money so you could afford that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, throwing money at a problem doesn't fix a problem. All that does is just, and that's, I know it's the
Well, I'm just
Democrat
being
way.
devil's advocate
I
for
know, yeah, they'll say
Let's
that.
go
But
back.
here's the
Just
thing.
go back to the FDR days. So chicken in every pot, kind of thing like that, right? Now we have to give you a few more chickens, but hey, aren't you going to be happier that way? Hey,
yeah. And then you have, then I don't know if you guys watch on YouTube. You've got a bunch of YouTubers that are saying how people should, because they don't want to go back to work in person, they're kind of demanding that employers let them telework. And I'm like, you work for the employer. The employer doesn't work for you. He signs the front of the paycheck. You sign the back of the paycheck. And I think, if you don't want to work on location, if the employer says, hey, you have to be on site, then you should go on site or find another job at the end of the day.
there was an interesting survey that I saw this morning that was reported on Fox, which was, I can't remember who did the survey, but they found that 58% of the workers that they surveyed said that they would return. They're happy to return to the office. 36% said they want to be able to telework, work remotely at 2 to 3 days a week from home, and 6% said we'd find another job if we had to go back to the office.
Well, go find another job.
The things have, people's mentality has changed tremendously. It'll be kind of interesting to see what kind of a long-term effect that has on the economy too, because there are certain things that businesses, you need to have the employees present. You can't work remotely on everything.
Yep. I mean, like over at, let's say you can't, I think there's a value of being face-to-face, frankly. There is, I like going into the office. Maybe it's just because one of the offices I go to is NASA, and it's just a whole lot of fun there. Going out and getting coffee, walk around, you see the rockets and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just a fun place to be. But I'm sorry, even if I were working for AIM, like I did many, many moons ago, I would still prefer to go into the office because it's just so much more fun. There's something about interaction with people in real time, frankly. I was having lunch with an old friend today, and we were talking about how he goes, we can't go back to another lockdown. This is what normal is, being able to hang out with your friends, opposed to having a mask on and, walking around outside and so on. I think that's the big thing with the Biden administration. If I were to give them a fair report card, a little more than 6 months in, I would have to give them an F in every category, frankly. I don't think they're doing anywhere. If you look at everything from the border, foreign relations, you look at domestic policy, where is the success that they can point to in the Biden administration? Even Bill Clinton had several successes he could point to in his first 2 years,
So I didn't catch the debate, or not the debate, but the town hall the other night. But a lot of the commentary that I heard as a result of it was, well, he's just so nice. Like, he's such a nice guy. He's personable, and he comes across as if he cares. So if there's a win for anything, Dwight, that's what it is. And people are blinded by his niceness and his kindness and Grandpa Joe.
Yeah, Grandpa Joe is senile.
Yeah, but
senile Joe.
The scary thing with this is just, and we've seen this time and time again, it's just that he's asked this question, he's trying to answer this question, and he stops, he's not sure, and he's trying to gather his thoughts and trying to figure this out, and he just it's just like not firing, the synapses aren't really kind of going there, and he's just trying to pull these things together. He's just not sure what he's doing. Biden, he without a teleprompter, without that message written in front of him so he can read it, kind of a thing like that, really struggles to pull a cohesive sentence on policy positions together. And that's scary to me. Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. He's a president of the United States. I need this guy to project, give me a good image. Tell me, show the confidence, show that you can actually get from point A to point B without stumbling. and he really struggles with this, and this is very worrisome to me.
But he's nice.
Yeah, he's nice.
By the way, you know who the biggest loser in this whole thing is, right? Is Kamala Harris. She was expecting she would have been coronated president by now. Because
she still has the opportunity.
Yeah, but if you talk to a lot of Democrats, they thought Joe would be gone by June, and we'd have President Kamala Harris.
What do they call her? Kamala Mama or whatever it is.
I call her Camilla.
Camilla.
Yeah, I mean, and she look, and we all know. I mean, she hasn't done anything to distinguish herself, during this first 6 months either. I mean, she's been given these various assignments by the president.
The border czarina.
Right, and I mean, nothing is happening there at all. So every time that they give her something, so it's like, are they setting her up to fail too? Because that's not what the Biden people really don't want her around anyway, and might as well give her the assignment she's going to flop on, and so that there's just no way that they'll accept her in the long term as a, if Biden decides that he's not going to run, in 2024. Will be damaged goods by that time for them because she hasn't gotten anything done. Who knows?
I want to
switch real briefly. But I want to just talk about the Olympics a little bit because the opening ceremonies were this morning. Some of
I was very disappointed in those, by the way, Don.
It's already started. But get everybody's feeling about this. I mean, are the woke Olympics? Is it worth it? Was it something we should have they have done it based on what's happened with COVID? Is it going too woke? We have too many protests. Look what happened to our women's national soccer team. It was, and as much as we want USA, they kneel and then they lost for the first time in 45 games. It becomes, it's a little bit sweet for a lot of conservatives when they saw them lose after all that protest. What's your take, guys?
Well, I think Don, they should have just canceled the Olympics, moved them to the next 2 years. Remember back when I was a kid, the Olympics came around every 4 years. You had the summer and the winter this very same year. I don't know why they decided to do off years. Let's reset everything to every 4 years. And frankly, I could care less about the Olympics. I mean, we've come so far from the Miracle on Ice to where we are now. I mean, I remember that game. Jeff, you probably remember that too. 1980, the Miracle, where we defeated the Soviet Empire. And we've come so far from there. Then we were proud to be Americans. Today, you got our athletes kneeling or turning their backs or covering their faces. What is the matter with these people? This country is why you're able to go and compete in the Olympics,
Yeah, it's definitely become too woke. Like the Olympics are one of those events that when you see the effort and the adversity that those athletes go to, like at the end you're so proud to say USA, and that's literally when I'll shed a tear, for those Olympic winners. But when it's become woke like this, and you're turning your back on your country, and there's no place on the global stage for that type of display, because quite frankly, if you're there, you're there. You know what I mean? Like you're there. Like
you're there to represent America, and you turn your back on your team.
Yeah, how is America racist if you're representing America for this event, this event, this event, this event? How are you standing against quote unquote injustice? And you saying, black faces need voices and all these other things you're saying, if you're the black face on the grandest stage, not because you're black, but because you're the best and you're the top of your skill. Like that, that's it was a moment. I remember watching the Olympics growing up, and even some of the sports now. When you see USA #1, I get chills, and I'm proud to say I'm an American. But this is putting a damper on that, and there should be no wokeness at the Olympics. If anything, it should just go back to sleep.
I agree.
Look, and I don't think these athletes understand that what happens in the end too is that they're going to be known more for this act turning their back on the flag and everything, not for the accomplishment. Olympic athletes are phenomenal. We should honor and respect them and revere them. I wish I had the talent to be an Olympic athlete, but that's not me. They go through a lot to get to that, to qualify for that. Just because you were in one Olympics doesn't mean for the next Olympics, because there could be somebody better, faster, stronger coming along that beats you out, in the qualifying, right? Even the teams, not all the teams, basketball teams that played 4 years ago are back to play this time around. These are supposed to be the world's best athletes. We want to be able to be remembered for what you accomplished at the Olympics, whether or not it's in track and field, whether or not it's swimming, whatever it may be, basketball, volleyball, whatever, all those different sports, softball, all those, but not because you decided to raise your fist or take a knee or do whatever. That's absolutely ridiculous. I said before, they're there to represent the United States of America. You know that. I mean, if you feel that the country is racist, this is not the place you take that argument to.
No, it's not. And that's the biggest problem, is how these folks, I mean, we've come so far, and it's like that.
Yeah, there's a time and place for everything. It's like, you don't put dirty dishes in the hamper, right? You don't put clean clothes, in the dishwasher, right? Like, everything has, a place, right? So that's what we're doing. We're like mixing laundry with the trash, right? This is, that's what we're doing. Like, everything has a place, and everything should be addressed in its place.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So I was going to say too that I guess I've kind of been a little bit disenfranchised with both the IOC and just athletes in general. I mean, I can remember a lot of the older athletes. I mean, I still remember, Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps and some of the great athletes. And these are athletes we know for their, physical prowess and such. But I don't know. I think part of it is a problem of our own making, just because, everyone has to have a platform of some kind, and everyone's looking for the long game. They want to have, they're not looking at just that, the immediate accolades. They're looking at, sponsorships. They're looking at long-term deals and stuff. And so they want to have a brand. So every athlete now is, needs to have some sort of, branding to it. So part of it is just, the world we live in. But to your point, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Olympics used to be just something where you'd watch because you'd see the physical prowess of these individuals. But now it's like, last time I tried to watch the Olympics, it was all commercials and all, sponsorships and everything. This was like, it's worse than, watching football. I like college football because these are athletes that have, great skill. But the pro football teams is like, get ready for a 5-hour, marathon of just commercials and such, because that's all it is. And I just feel like that's kind of a bit of a tangent. But again, I just feel it's the whole athleticism has been watered down over the years. So,
and we all remember,
don't get me wrong, they're still great athletes. Like, if you watch some of these guys work out,
these guys were great.
If you watch these guys work out, them train,
now this is what we
they're still great athletes.
This is where we've come. We went from here to here, and that should be troubling. That should bother every single American. That, I wonder, when do they start canceling this for this?
It's funny because I remember very specifically, it really the pivot was Charlottesville. And the liberals were so successful at Charlottesville, if you guys remember, where instead of racist or people who were basically neo-Nazis running around, basically Democrats fighting Democrats, it became, they changed the word during Charlottesville to their nationalists running around. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah,
and
I do.
They changed, and nationalism became a sin almost instantly. It was nationalists that killed an innocent woman. It was nationalists that are the extremists. It's nationalists that stormed the Capitol. Nationalism isn't a disgusting thing. In fact, actually, if you look at the definition of nationalism, I mean, the denotation is pretty clear. It is love of country. So when they changed, they took off their ugly mask during Charlottesville, the left, and they said, look, nationalism and love for country and love for American roots and love for our history, even the disgusting history and the amazing reality that we've came so far from our most disgusting parts. That's what makes us Americans, that we've prevailed through the rough and tumble times. They destroyed all that, and they said nationalism's terrible, America sucks, America's horrible, and anybody who loves this country is a terrible, evil person that believes in death and destruction. And this is what we got. I mean, like Giovanni said, that's like basically Ray Lewis running around with the Ravens and saying, taking a picture of a raven and like throwing it on the ground and like peeing on it. I mean, and then catching it on fire. It makes absolutely no sense.
Hey,
you
Gary?
are a member of the team of the Baltimore Ravens. You're a member of the U.S. team. You wouldn't be there if you weren't a member of that team, but yet you're not going to give any courtesy and respect for the actual team that you represent. It's crazy.
By the way, Gary, you mentioned national. I want to show you some very radical nationalists from around the world, that we should all be afraid of. Here's one. He was a nationalist.
Yep.
This guy was a nationalist. And nobody questions, their love for their respective nations. Why can't we be proud to be Americans? Frankly, I mean, look at that. Evidently this flag triggers lefties. I mean, I don't know if you guys read the article about that was in the New York Times. Where they said how, about how the American flag, basically it's code for racists and this and that. And it's very troubling, how, and Gary, this whole nationalism stuff, this goes back to George W. Bush and the War on Terror.
For sure.
They were called, they were saying, all those horrible nationalists, that want to go refight the Crusades and the War on Terror.
Well, look, I remember 9/11, and speaking of George Bush and 9/11, I remember the day of, moments after it happened, through that entire week, there was a sense of unity that existed in this country like never before. I remember driving around, basically with my family, and people would literally be driving down the streets holding American flags out the window. Do you guys remember that? Yep. And I mean, there was so much love for America and for this country and for what we stand for. I mean, it literally even gets me emotional right now thinking of how beautiful it was to have all of us united as Americans. You remember when everybody went out on the Capitol stairs, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, left, right, whatever, they took a kneel and they prayed for America so we could be the United States of America and prevail in that dark moment. And then what happened?
Then politics. I mean, you know what the sad thing is? The Democrats are having a meeting that morning how to defeat this guy. And you also had, and Gary, all the whole signs of unity. Remember this one? Where Tom Daschle, and then like 3 months later, George W. Bush was Satan incarnated all of a sudden again. But and we're coming up on 20 years of 9/11 this year. But the Democrats have turned what was virtuous into a sin and what sins into virtue. That is what they've done. Everything that was normal and accepted, American dream, success, all of that is now become a sin. Asking for handouts, and that's all become virtuous.
All right, Dwight, we're almost at the top of the hour.
We're at final thoughts time. Yes. Final thoughts, everyone. And it's more than one. You can have more than one thought, Giovanni. I know you're new. But we're going to start with Gary, because Gary last time got knocked off before you got to do his final thoughts. So, Gary, do your final thoughts.
Well, America's the greatest country. So, I mean, switching from such a sad, somber, conclusion here, it's such a great country that we live in. I mean, this is a great state. And particularly my prayer and hope is that we join together as a Republican Party, even in the midst of, basically multiple, candidates who are running, that we remember that really the goal is to maintain a beautiful future for our children and for their children, and continue the status quo without destroying what really makes us Marylanders and Americans. And screw the Olympics, basically. That's my concluding thought.
Final thoughts, Jeff Thornton, since we have not heard much from Jeff at all today. Final thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, you guys had so many good comments. I guess, I don't have anything in particular, but just kind of to touch a little bit back on what we talked about before. You guys should check the Consumer Price Index to see the Department of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They release the Consumer Price Index, and it's not just one number. I mean, they have the CPI, but they also have it broken down into different sectors. And it's interesting to see, how energy spikes, and then just in the last couple months, I'm not really sure what caused it, but you guys kind of mentioned a little bit too that it's not just used cars, but if you look at the price for even renting a car, that's gone up by 75% in just the last couple months. So I mean, this is where people live. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that really affects a lot of people. And as Dwight said before, I mean, this is the increases in food and stuff is really kind of a tax on the poor, because the people that have enough money to afford nice homes and nice cars, if milk goes up by 15%, they may notice it. They may not even notice it.
They may not like paying it, but they'll still pay it.
Well, yeah, but then the point is they might not even notice it. I mean, sometimes you've seen skits before where people that are rich are asked questions like, "How much does a gallon of milk cost?" And I don't know. They have no clue at all, because it's not where they live. They don't really care about that stuff. But the people that are the working class Americans, the people that are really the foundational part of America that trying to live the American dream, those are the people that care about these prices. They're the ones who care about how much a gallon of gas costs. They're the ones who are going to drive additional 10 minutes to find the cheapest gas, because they can't afford to just get what's convenient. They need to look to see what's economical. And it's just troubling when people just kind of overlook these issues and say, well, it doesn't really affect Americans. Well, the Americans that it does affect, it affects deeply. So that's the stuff that I think really needs to be looked at. And we talked about before, but I'm really dreading what could be the second wave of this COVID. If it is going to affect small businesses, because, like I said, so many businesses were hit so hard the first go round, and I'm not seeing anything yet with this administration about what their plans are. Even if this does happen, what are we going to do to start protecting businesses? What assurances can we give them that if we're going to need them to enforce not just the mask mandate, but social distancing and reduced occupancy? Sure, it's nice that individuals get some tax benefits and such, but what about the businesses that bring in the taxes? What's going to preserve those companies? So that's what my kind of fear is that I want to make sure that the small businesses really do get looked after, and that there's some hope for them in the coming months.
Thank you. And, that's very true. I know a lot of the folks on the left say, oh, food prices don't count for inflation. You tell somebody that actually has to pay those and are having to put food on the table, they understand that. Giovanni, final thoughts. You can have more than one thought.
So I'll be pretty brief. Even though I ran as a politician, I'm really not that big of a talker, but I just want to say this. Intellectuals have this cunning ability to con people out of common sense. So I just want people just to be aware, just use your eyes, look at your wallet, your pocketbook, and understand what's happening to you. Don't just believe what someone else is telling you, selling you, want you to believe. Again, intellectuals have a cunning ability to con people out of common sense. So let's just start thinking again. Let's just start using our brain.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Final thoughts, Don Irvine.
One subject we didn't get a chance to talk about was Nancy Pelosi. So the Democrats, as we know, had their January 6th committee, and so Kevin McCarthy tried to appoint a couple of very ardent Trump supporters to the committee. Pelosi has rejected them and wants Adam Kinzinger, who's an anti-Trumper. as well as getting Denver Riggleman, former congressman, who was also an anti-Trumper, to advise the committee. I mean, I think we all knew that, this whole January 6th committee was just, was a farce to begin with. But this whole attitude by Pelosi, rejecting the Republicans' picks here by McCarthy, I think just shows you that this whole thing is just complete and utter nonsense. Absolutely zero credibility. And anybody who actually listens or follows anything that they do, and the media, if they report on this and try to turn whatever they say into some kind of factual report, that they deserve a black eye for that, because this is just a waste of time and money and a travesty to be going after this nonsense at this point in time. We're not trying to bring America back together. We're definitely not going to bring America back together if we're going to sit around here and talk about January 6th, 7-8 months later, as this thing going to drag on. So this is just utter nonsense and pure politics by the Democrats.
Yeah, Don, it's not like there's any other problems in the world they have to tackle. There's nothing else going on. It's not like they need to worry about anything else. The world is just perfectly fine right now. We have no high price of oils. We have no issues like that. Everything's just running along smoothly.
And remember, Baltimore City schools are doing well.
That's true. And trees are all going to be deputized to protect you. So, Giovanni, Gary, I believe you both live in the city.
We do.
When there's somebody breaking into your house, don't call 911. Call the Forestry Service and see if a tree will come and rush and help you. There you go. Oh, you got your own personal security guard.
Exactly. I keep it nice and close just in case. Just in case.
They're just going to calls to like social workers, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing we really didn't talk about.
911. How do you feel?
Yeah.
How are you feeling
but
today?
they've already said one of the organizations that's supposed to be responding to these type of calls, they haven't been getting paid.
Really? That's very interesting.
Yep.
So my final thoughts, I've got a few. One, I do want to remind everyone, this is how the Biden folks are going to force vaccinations. Instead of a gun, it's going to be a vaccine gun, and that's how they're going to do it. And if I share that one, I got to share about the first family that went to visit Cuba. The folks, lovely folks from Springfield, they went to Cuba and visit, when Obama opened up things. And these are some their pictures, but, fun on that. But you can't show enough Homer Simpson. But final thoughts, there's a bunch of things, one, I think it's primaries are a good thing. If you recall the 1980 presidential primary, which elected President Reagan, that was a knockdown, drag-out primary between the old guard and the new guard, frankly, and we were better off for having that primary. So I don't mind primaries. I just have issues with Democrats running as Republicans in the Republican primary. So Michael, maybe you should run as a Democrat. You might have a better chance in their primary. My other final thoughts is congratulations to Montgomery County Republican Club and the folks that organized Kelly Schultz's fundraiser in Montgomery County. Very well attended. Very well attended. I think it was people were overflowing onto the rooftops there. It was a great event. And finally, we have a great candidate for Attorney General for the great state of Maryland. He prosecuted Sam Berkowitz, the son of Sam murder in New York City. A longtime resident of Montgomery County, Jim Shalek, announced yesterday he is running for Attorney General. And Godspeed. Jim's a great candidate. I know Jim's in the process of getting his website and all the donations, but I hope everyone watching will consider donating and coming to our kickoff that we'll be planning for Jim in the next few weeks. And with that,
hey,
yes.
One last question.
Yes.
This is going to be ill placed. Is Robin Ficker having a kickoff? Because I want to be the special guest speaker.
I think he's already. I believe Robin sent us a message. He is He's on the boardwalk.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's on the boardwalk taking pictures. Okay.
yeah, he's
He,
on the
he
boardwalk
sends us a
campaigning.
message almost every week that he's on the boardwalk.
Yeah. So I mean,
All right.
it's not a bad place to be, frankly. You do see a lot of the state goes in. It's Maryland's playground, Ocean City. Opposed to Maryland's minefield, which is Baltimore City.
Maybe 4 more years, I can go ahead and be his special guest speaker in 4 more years. So who knows?
And I'm sure he'll be doing some events. But it's a great. Jim Shalek is a great candidate. We got fabulous candidates running for governor. Kelly Schultz and a bunch of others. And I'm just so happy Jim Shalek's running for attorney general. It's been a long time coming. I've been telling Jim he should run for AG for several cycles now, and I'm glad that Jim is finally running. And Jim can give Brian Frosch a run for his money. So just keep your eyes open for Jim Shalek events and so on. Thank you, everyone. See you guys next week. Good night.